All right, hi guys. So guess what? We're back. We're going to talk about network cabling. I know you're jonesing for it, so let's get to it. Now, of course, no one wants to walk into your data center or any server room for that matter and see a mass of wires that look like multicolored spaghetti dangling from the back of a server rack, looking like the tentacles of Cthulhu. This sight can be just as scary. Anyway, truth be told, it could also be as deadly as well. Misrouted cables, unorganized cables, and that spaghetti mess can inhibit airflow, increase temperature, lead to premature wire and component failure, and can drastically increase maintenance time. So the key is to stay organized right from the get-go, out of the starting gate. Little time invested at the start or when installing new hardware, proper planning and organization will be able to save you a ton of time and expense in the long run. Truth is, as demand for speed and data increases, so does the size of components. So that means that more data centers are moving to 23-inch or wider racks rather than the former 19-inch server racks. Now, why would that matter to network cable organization? Well, because of all your components for vertical and horizontal organization are based on rack size, or maybe they're adjustable. From 1 unit or 0 unit rack cable managers, sometimes called horizontal lacing bars, to 11 rack unit or 22 rack unit vertical cable managers, rack size matters. Now, speaking of horizontal and vertical cable management, there are different standards for each and different lengths and types available. 0U cable management offers better cable management while taking up no valuable rack space. Perfect, right? There are 0U racks in both 19 and 23-inch configurations. These rack cable management shells will work with almost any existing rack, and they help maximize server rack space. So this can especially be vital when adding new hardware. See, often limited floor space means limited space for racks as well. So the more shelf space one can save, the better. And vertical cable managers allow cables to be easily routed. Keeps them visible, but also still allows for port access. There are a variety of solutions depending on the needs of your data center, but most will fit almost any rack size or type. Rack size, rack cable management accessories, yeah, they're both really important things. But another important aspect of network cable management would be your labeling. Don't skimp on the labeling of cables and connections. I mean, this may seem like a real pain, especially when you're initially installing all these cables, but how often have you said later, gosh, I wish I had labeled that. Where does this go? Well, labels are going to save you a lot of work in the long run, but only if you use them properly. So you got to label both ends of all types of cables, have a consistent labeling structure, and make sure other installers and maintenance personnel understand your labeling system so that it's clearly defined in writing. Also, you'll be able to remember by looking at your sheet. Now, an unclear or inconsistent labeling structure is just as useless as not having one. Believe me, I speak from experience. And failing to label everything on both ends, that's going to bring confusion as well. So it's just way better to over-label than to not even label enough. Or at all. But now you know. Yeah, so I got to be real here. Cable length matters. So one of the primary causes of cable management issues that look like that spaghetti monster, cables that are too long. Not only is it a waste of cable, but that extra cable's got to go somewhere. Yeah, even an extra foot of cable can easily result in a cable. So use the right length. Measure everything, measure twice, and cut once. Wiggle cables once you install them. Yeah, you got to be the Terminator. If you lose a connection, redo the termination. Terminate correctly, and don't rush the process just to save a little time. Believe me, it'll cost you time, effort, and even money later on. Terminations are one of the biggest keys to efficient network cable management. So, be the terminator. Terminate carefully and properly, and test your terminations as you perform installations. Otherwise, like the Terminator in the movie, you'll be saying, "I'll be back." Yeah, that's just as good as my Sean Connery. Never mind. So look, cables probably look like they're tough, invincible. Sure, they're tough, but sharp bends are not their friend, or yours for that matter. This can be especially tempting, though, when you're adding components or you're short on space. But please don't be tempted by this shortcut. You don't unnecessarily twist, bend, or crimp cables. It can result in data loss, speed loss, and irregular network cable behavior. The biggest issues facing data centers today are speed, data volume, and uptime. And bending cables in ways they shouldn't be is a sure way to compromise all three. Now, look, I feel you. Everyone loves saving money. But remember that cheap cables are usually just that, cheap. Sometimes to reduce costs, companies will compromise on sheathing, cable diameter, strength, and more. You ever heard of copper-clad aluminum? Well, you might save money in the short term, but the cost in the long term will be so much greater. Cheap solutions really aren't. They're just usually problems in disguise and will result in other issues long term. Now, you should isolate cables by type. There are a couple of simple reasons for this, and this is where cable managers and hangers really come into play. So you isolate cables to avoid interference with other types of cables. Isolate cables to make connections easier to trace and troubleshoot. Isolate cables for easy access. Now, a common example is the isolation of power cables, which, of course, can cause electromagnetic interference with network cables, causing some serious issues over the long run. This also helps avoid tangling and the common spaghetti mess that we don't have to talk about anymore, do we? Now, there are places where plastic cable ties work really well, but often when bundling large amounts of wire, when additions may be needed later, Velcro cable managers are a much better solution. It's reusable, it's easy to undo and redo, can hold a lot of weight. It's easy to rebundle later on, and it can be cut to any length you need. In most cases, Velcro is simply a much better solution than regular plastic ties, and in the long run, it's more economical as well. And don't we just have a wide variety available to us? Go ahead, you'll love it. Network cable management is a vital part of any data center. So it's better to have a plan at the start and organize things from the beginning, whether you're just building your data center or whether you're expanding in response to increased demand. From rack size to labels, from labels to Velcro, and every part of rack cable management can make a huge difference to the bottom line. So please, don't risk shortcuts and cheap components. Instead, maximize your profits and uptime by doing things right in the first place. Your future self and your customers and clients will thank you for it. Well, it's time to wrap it up. Now you know a little something about network cabling. All right, I'll see you next time.